everybody! I'm so pumped to share Royce's birth story today and just kind of talk about like my pregnancy and how it all went. I've been dying to do this for weeks, literally since he's been born. But I finally had a chance to like get all my thoughts down on the computer, just kind of like all the little points that happened. So I'm gonna go ahead and share it. I'm so excited. And just like as, hey guys, hey Sadie, hey Kimberly, how are you guys doing? Just as like to, if you're a guy, you probably want to turn this off. Let's be real, because birth is totally graphic, and I'm not gonna like, my birth wasn't scary. It wasn't anything I was scared of, but it's because I prepared myself. So if you're pregnant right now, or if you plan on being down the road, prepare yourself and just learn about birth. It's an amazing thing that God created our bodies to do. It blows my mind. And modern medicine is also amazing in the fact that someone who experienced what I experienced at the end of my pregnancy might not have made it. So I'm super blessed. And this is obviously my birth story. I think it's amazing. I had an amazing experience despite it going to my plan 0, like not at all. So I'm so excited to see so many of you guys that I love on here. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I'm going to get into it. I'm going to start at the beginning. So literally a year ago, I went off the pill. I had been on the pill forever, like a lot of women these days, because I had horrible periods. And I did not get my period ever after going off the pill. Never got it. So in January, I started going to the doctor, January of this year, because I was like, all right, it's been like over 100 days I haven't had my period. I should probably go figure this out and find out why my body's not working the way it's supposed to. And I literally was getting blood drawn left and right. I used to hate needles. Now I'm like, watch me. I'm just going to watch you take that blood out my arm because it doesn't bother me. I literally got pricked like 4 times in a week. And so I was like, all right, I need to get over this needle thing. Found out at the very end of January, I was anemic. And I was like, well, maybe that's why I'm not getting my period. I don't really know. But the nurse practitioner I was seeing went ahead and she was like, let's schedule an ultrasound so we can see if there's any cysts in your ovaries or in your uterus that's like causing you not to get your period. We'll just kind of take that next step. So I had that scheduled for the very end of February, I think. And she told me at that appointment if I had any like pregnancy symptoms to go ahead and take a test and we'll just cancel the thing if it's positive and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, whatever. Cause I'm like, I haven't had my period. I'm not going to get pregnant, even though we were like wanting to. So, this whole time at the very beginning of January, I had started a workout program. I was super committed and I was in amazing shape. I was basically the healthiest I've ever been in my life when it comes to like my mindset and my body, how I was feeling it, how I was working out. I was super balanced. I was super healthy. Like I've never been that healthy holistically in my life. It was amazing. And in that season, while I was doing that program, while I was going through this, like, why am I not getting my period thing? My husband had to leave. He's in the military and he had to go to what it's called SEER school. It's a month long. It's basically this training where they learn how to survive. They learn how to escape and like resist if they get captured by the enemy. So it's a pretty intense training. It was on the other, we were living in Alabama at the time and it was up in Washington. So he's super far away. We couldn't talk for half of it because he was like out in the woods in Washington in the snow trying to survive, or he was like being captured by like the people training them, trying to learn how to be a prisoner of war and survive that. So that's what his training was. So like super stressful time of our lives, right? So he left for that mid-January where I'm going through all this health stuff. I'm focusing in on my health and fitness and all of that. And so during that time, I went to visit my family in South Carolina for 2 weeks because it was a short drive away. We were going to be moving to the other side of the country in a few weeks. So I was like, I'll go visit them one last time while I'm still in driving distance. So I was in South Carolina for a few weeks, still committed to my program. I was still super healthy. And at the tail end of that trip, my boobs got so sore and so swollen. And I was like, what the heck is going on right now? Am I about to get my period? Because I had no period. I had had no period symptoms. I had had a little cramping right after my husband left. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get my period. And then I never did. So, and that was like 4 weeks before my boobs started to hurt. So like I said, if you're a guy, hop off because this is not for you. I mean, pregnancy, it's amazing, but like you're going to get nothing out of this. All you women on here that have had babies. You know what I'm talking about. So my boobs are super sore. This is like early February. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I go back and I'm like, okay, well, my nurse practitioner did say to take a pregnancy test if I had any symptoms. And I was like, I think, yeah, hilarious, right? I was like, I think sore boobs is like a symptom. And my best friend, actually, Holly, we've been best friends since the 4th grade. So like, way back. She had told me right before Casey left, my husband's Casey, she had told me her and her husband were expecting. Or maybe it was right before Christmas. It was all a blur. Life is a blur now. But she was like, yeah, we're expecting. We're due in August. She's so excited. She was due the day after my birthday. So I was super excited for them. And she told me that her boobs hurting was one of the first things. I think she did. I could be making that up, but I'm pretty sure she told me that because I had heard it somewhere. That could be a pregnancy symptom, or sign. So I was like, okay, whatever. I am not a huge crier unless I'm watching like a super emotional movie. My husband was still gone on Valentine's Day. We're not big like Valentine's Day people. It's like a Hallmark holiday in my book. But he, and on Valentine's Day, we couldn't even talk because he was a prisoner of war at his training. Which is, I say it with a smile, but it was horrible. Like for him, it was horrible. But I got some mail and I opened it up and it's this box of chocolate covered strawberries and I bawled my eyes out. Like I had never cried so hard in my life. I probably had before, but I literally was like this sobbing, blubbering, snotty mess. I was crying so hard because my husband sent me chocolate covered strawberries and my boobs hurt. And I was like, this is so weird. The stores were already closed by the time to open the package. So the next morning I was like, I'll go buy a pregnancy test because I think this is it. I had taken some since October because I was like, okay, I'm not getting my period, but I could get pregnant. And I had some like things where I thought I was. So I went ahead and took a pregnancy test at the very February 15th. I remember because I was like the day after Valentine's Day. I remember that. I took it and it was positive like right away. And I was like, literally, I was mind blown. And I remind you, like it had been like a couple days since I had talked to my husband. I was an emotional wreck when he sent me those chocolate covered strawberries. And now I had a positive pregnancy test in my hand. And I was like, we didn't have a lot of people around us like close by physically that I was like super close with that I would share that. I was like, well, I need to tell my husband first, but he's on the other side of the country. He won't get back from training until tonight. I was a wreck. So I had to keep that to myself all day. I talked to my mom on the phone like every day. So I was keeping this all to myself. And he gets back from training. And mind you, like, he was just in training to learn how to like survive through being captured or whatever because of his job in the military requires him to be able to live through those things. And so when he got back and we FaceTimed, he was like drained. Just, it's exhausting for him to go through that. And I could just tell by looking at him. He was still like covered in dirt and like bruised up. And I was like, so we were just talking and I was pretty much myself, but we were FaceTiming, so I'm holding my phone and I'm sitting in our living room and on our coffee table I've got like the 2 positive pregnancy tests that I took because let's be honest, like when you get one positive one, you go take like 15 more. Yeah, I know, right? I had to wait like 12 hours. It was a super long time. Any of you who wait longer than that, tell your husbands, I don't know how you do it because I was like busting at the seams. But he had just gotten back from his resistance training that night. He was bruised up. He was dirty. He hadn't showered yet for like days. Mentally and emotionally totally drained because they literally get them to a point where like they think they're gonna mess with your family even though they're just in training. So it was, I mean, he was a mess too. We're both a mess at this point, right? And I, just kind of a pause in the conversation and I'm FaceTiming him and he's like just distant right there. I pick up the positive pregnancy test and I'm like, so these are positive. That's literally how I told him on FaceTime. I was like, these are positive. And he was like, what? Because he can't like process this at this point. So he's like kind of excited and can't really focus on what's going on. So funny. And that's how our pregnancy started, basically. He soaked it in kind of that night. Next morning, he was excited about it because he was like not emotionally drained anymore. And yeah, he got home on like the 17th or the 18th. So a few days later, and I had to go in and do the whole pee test at the doctor, and so they could confirm it too. I was like, you guys are doing the same test I've done 20 times. Spent so much money on those pregnancy tests. And so I brought him like these little socks because he thinks baby feet and how small they are is amazing. So I bought him little baby socks and a dad book, and it was like, it's official, we're pregnant. And so that was the very end, middle, whatever of February. And March 9th, early March, we moved when I was 9 weeks pregnant. So that was move number one. Normal first trimester. I was kind of nauseous. I never got sick, praise the Lord. Never got sick, but around the time that we moved, so our goods had to be packed up and put in storage. While we were in Albuquerque, we lived there for about 6-7 months. So we moved there early March, right after we found out we were pregnant, from Alabama to New Mexico. So that was a 3-day trip. I was 9 weeks pregnant. Obviously, we go from like sea level to a mile. It's actually a couple hundred feet higher than Denver. So that's the altitude we were at when we moved. And around that same time, I started to experience that like nausea. It wasn't bad, but I could really only stomach like citrus flavored things and like saltines and oyster crackers. So that's basically what I lived off of. I kept working out really consistently. I was still in great shape. But y'all, that altitude threw me for a loop. I was like, this is exhausting. That first trimester exhaustion. I mean, I probably slept 14 hours out of the 24-hour day. I slept so much. We had stairs in our townhouse. The stairs were a nightmare. But yeah, we lived in Albuquerque. I survived the summer there pregnant. I traveled a lot that summer. It was awesome. My husband and I took a Bradley class there. Bradley method is like husband coached birth or whatever they call it. It was awesome. He learned a lot. I learned a lot. My whole pregnancy, I just really informed myself a lot about birth because I knew, I don't know, I heard this quote somewhere that if like women spend so much time and energy and money planning their wedding, which is a huge life event, but like bringing a human into this world is a huge life event too. So why do we not spend as much time preparing for that as we do for a wedding, which is like a one day. Your wedding's a big deal, but like your marriage is a bigger deal. Having a kid is a big deal. You're bringing a life into this world. So I prepared for that. Like I prepared for my wedding. And great pregnancy. I was healthy the whole time. I kept working out. I was seeing a midwife in Albuquerque all the way up to 36 weeks. And we were supposed to move here to Las Vegas in early August, but my husband's training got delayed. So we moved mid-September. I was due October 17th. Stay asleep. He's right here sleeping. He keeps like twitching. And it was a Tuesday, the day that I had to move because my husband wasn't done with training yet. And so I moved by myself. It took the 8-ish hour drive from Albuquerque to Las Vegas at 35 weeks and 6 days. I was pretty swollen at this point. So that was September 18th. So I was pretty swollen at this point. I had gained a lot of weight during my pregnancy, but not like at that point, not to the point where it was like crazy ridiculous, right? I was only almost 36 weeks, but I was pretty swollen. I got to move into this house on that next day on Wednesday. So Tuesday was a wreck. I got here, I was supposed to stay in a hotel that night. Our military bases, hotels are like kind of different. So yeah, the swelling was crazy. So there's like a main hotel and then there's like separate buildings. Usually they used to be dorms that are also made into hotels. So I got put up in one of the old dorms, which had no elevator. I was on the 3rd floor, the furthest from the stairwell. I had my triathlon bike. I had like a suitcase. I had some bags of food. And I was literally like, I have to haul all this stuff. I knew no one here. It was like 100 degrees. I hauled it all, 36 weeks pregnant, short by like 12 hours, hauled it all 3 flights of stairs, down the hallway, bawling my eyes out because I'm like, I'm supposed to be like in a hotel. The first hotel I went into had like cockroaches because it wasn't open yet. I was a wreck. So this was the Tuesday. I haven't shared this ever because I was a crying wreck that day. I was just crying the whole time after I got here because things just kept not going right. I was like, this is horrible. I called my husband. I was like, I'm not staying here. And I'm not, because I was supposed to stay till Friday when he got into town. and around the time our furniture was supposed to get here. So, because we had no bed, we had no furniture. So, Tuesday was horrible. When I got to base, I didn't see a speed bump, so I flew over the speed bump, and my bike, my $4,000 triathlon bike, fell off the back of my car during rush hour on base where people are trying to get back to their houses. So I'm out there, 36 weeks pregnant, trying to like get my bike back onto my car. People are just driving by. I'm crying. I cried the whole Tuesday. So that's when I got, I just remembered all this. So I flew over a speed bump. That was my own fault because I was trying to get to the women's clinic, which closed in 30 minutes. So I could be in process and get my 36-week appointment, because it's really hard to get appointments at women's clinics, if y'all know what I'm talking about. So I was like, I need to get my 36-week appointment like scheduled. So I was running up and down once I got into the hospital, literally, because, labor and delivery and the women's clinics are always like the furthest away from the entrance. I don't know why they do it. Probably keep us contained because we're crazy ladies, right? But I got there. I'm running up and down because I have to register at the hospital, and then I have to switch with TRICARE, and I have to do all this stuff. And then I finally got an appointment. The lady wasn't nice to me at first, but we were laughing by the end. The lady up at the women's clinic. But I got an appointment scheduled for Friday, and I was like, sweet, 36 weeks in 2 days, I'll take it. Let's have that appointment scheduled. I got into her house on Wednesday. I bought an air mattress because I was like, I am not sleeping in that hotel anymore. So I slept on an air mattress Wednesday night and Thursday night. 36 weeks pregnant, super swollen. I would wake up with like numb hands. Literally since 34 weeks, I woke up with like numb hands. My hands killed. I was super swollen. I couldn't put my tennis shoes on. I was a wreck, total wreck. So we got into the house Wednesday. Our furniture arrived on Friday, and the moving company had called me the day before and was like, do you want us to unpack your boxes? And I was like, absolutely, please. Yes, that would be awesome. So they get there, they unload all our furniture. I'm like, oh my gosh, I forgot we had that. And I forgot we had that because it had been in storage for like 7 months. So our furniture gets here. While they're unloading our furniture, my friend had to come over to do the checklist because I had to go to my appointment. And I had my appointment. My blood pressures were kind of high. My whole pregnancy, they were like 130s over 70s, which is not bad. But usually my blood pressure is like 100s over 60s. Like I have super low blood pressure naturally. So when I got pregnant and it shot up to that, I was kind of like, oh, that's weird. And I asked them, I was like, is that not good that my blood pressure just went from like hundreds over 60s to like 120s, 130s over like 70s? And they were like, no, that's still healthy. Don't worry about it. If it gets higher than that, then it's a concern. So at my 36-week appointment on that Friday, my blood pressures were a little high. They weren't dangerous yet. They weren't 140s over 90s, 150s over 90s, but they weren't super great. So I had like one bad reading right after I walked all the way down the hallway and sat down. She took my blood pressure right away. So they were like, why don't you come back Monday for a blood pressure check? So I did. But before that, I spent the whole weekend unpacking with my husband, like unpacking every single box that we owned that came, because guess what? The movers did not unpack our boxes like they said they would. They left at 11 a.m. and I called at 2:30 and I was like, hey, are you guys going to come unpack our boxes like you said you would? Because I'm really pregnant and I can't do it by myself. And they were like, I heard the guy that was in charge of our crew, I heard his dog barking in the background. I'm like, he's sitting in his lazy boy at home. And he was like, oh, well, I could come next week because you were supposed to tell us. And I was like, okay, well, your boss called me the day before and asked if I wanted that done, and I said yes. I figured you guys would communicate that amongst your own company. But evidently they don't, so that was a little frustrating. So that probably didn't help my blood pressures either. So that all happened. I don't recommend moving at 36 weeks to anyone, especially if you're in the military and your stuff's been in storage for 6 months. So just a little side note there. But I went back in Monday. My husband went back to Albuquerque after helping me get moved in a little bit more, because he was still not done with training. So on Monday he went back to Albuquerque, which is an 8-9 hour drive, and he was scheduled to fly like Tuesday night, I think. He had like 2 or 3 flights left. He's a pilot. He had 2 or 3 flights left and of his training, and he was scheduled to fly Tuesday. I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, I'll be almost 37 weeks. His baby's not coming yet. I had this feeling my whole pregnancy was going to come a little bit early. But like I said, Monday I went to triage. Well, I went to the women's clinic and they're like, so since you're like really pregnant, we're going to send you to triage to get your blood pressures checked. I'm like, okay, cool. And I walk in, or send you over to labor and delivery. They send me to a triage room and I'm like, so they strap me up and I'm literally like, so I didn't know this was all going to happen. I didn't know I was going to be like sitting here forever strapped to these monitors. Because in a lot of the preparation that I did for birth, a lot of the podcasts I listened to, the class that my husband and I took, we both decided that what's best for our son, what's best for me, we wanted to do labor and birth as naturally as possible. Obviously I wasn't like tied dead set on something because I didn't want like to be let down or be disappointed. Birth doesn't go the way you plan it to. You're going to hear that 1,000 times, but it's totally true and it will show up in whatever way it does for you. But that was like the first sign. Well, basically the whole week before was my first sign. I didn't know it though. But I get triaged. Hi, baby. Waking up. I get triaged on Monday. I'm there for like 4 or 5 hours. I only told my husband and my mom because I didn't want to freak people out. Like, oh my gosh, she's been in the hospital for a few hours. They're, got her strapped to monitors. I don't want to be freaking my whole family out. So, kept that to ourselves. They wanted me to come back in Tuesday. My blood pressures were still borderline high, but not high enough to diagnose preeclampsia. But they were like, you definitely have gestational hypertension, which means pregnancy gives you high blood pressure. And I was like, so does moving at 36 weeks, with a moving company that doesn't stick to their word. So that was, that was Monday. They sent me home with a gallon jug and a little thing for my toilet, because I had to collect my pee for 24 hours. Here's where it starts to get graphic, y'all. Because that helps diagnose preeclampsia, is if there's a certain amount of protein in your urine. If it's like over a certain level, then they diagnose preeclampsia if there's other symptoms as well. So because of my high blood pressures, they were like, we're going to have you do this. So I did it 2 p.m.-ish on Tuesday. I brought it to the lab, dropped it off. Mind you, I'm super hydrated, so I had to go to the hospital and pick up an extra gallon thing because I had filled one up by 5 a.m. on Tuesday. And I was like, so I have to do this till 2 p.m. I think I need another one of those containers for my pee because I peed a lot last night. I'm pregnant. And so I had to go pick one up. It's hilarious. I totally forgot about that. But yeah, so Tuesday I bring it into the lab. I go up to get triaged. He doesn't like this part of the story, evidently. It's okay, Royce. He does that when he sleeps. So on Tuesday I get triaged. I'm 36 weeks and 6 days, okay? I have a few blood pressure readings that are high 150s over high 90s. And they're like, all right, those aren't good, Liz. And my labs after a few hours came back with double the amount of protein you're supposed to have. It was not a ridiculous amount. It wasn't dangerously high. And my blood pressures they were dangerous, but they weren't ridiculous. So the doctor was being super nice and saying because he knew my husband was 8 hours away and still in training and I have no one here. So he was very understanding. My nurse was awesome. Nikki, shout out to you wherever you are. I love you. You're my girl. Nikki's my girl. But our hospital only took women that are 36 weeks or over because our base hospital doesn't have a NICU. So I'm really concerned at this point. I'm okay, well, I really don't want to be induced, blah, blah, blah. I was telling him kind of I've learned a lot about birth. I know what preeclampsia is. I know all this. Hi, baby. He's listening now. But my doctor was making it sound we'll probably be able to wait a few days to induce you, just since your blood pressures aren't super dangerous. We'll probably have you come in every day just to test everything. And because your husband, give him some time to get here. But he's like, can't make any promises, but I feel like we can do that. He went to go talk to the head OB and they decided they had to induce me that night. And I was I was not ready for that, right? I had just moved less than a week ago to a new city, knew no one. Well, we had one couple here that moved a few days after us. But my husband is still in Albuquerque. I was this baby, it's September. The baby's supposed to come in October. I was I can't wrap my mind around this. But they were yeah, we have to do this because it's just not safe. It's safer for the baby and for you, for the baby to be born than for him to stay in. So, because preeclampsia is a disease of the placenta, so it can affect the oxygen and blood that the baby is getting. And so that's basically where we were at. I was like, all right, I knew this baby was going to come early, but I didn't think it was going to be like this. And I didn't think it would be this early. So the doctor came in and was like, so we need you to sign AMA. And I was like, what's that? Against medical advice. I was like, oh, this is getting really serious really fast. He's like, I know you have a dog and I know you've got your bags and stuff at home. So, I signed this form that's like, you could die, your baby could die. This could happen because you're leaving the hospital and, you're not supposed to and we're not advising you to. And I had to sign this form and I was like, oh my gosh, this is intense. I live 2 minutes. I literally live 1.5 miles from the hospital because it's all on base. So, so the hospital's super close. I'm super close to the hospital. I figured the whole time, I was like, well, when I go into labor, it'll be a short drive. Oh, well, I'm not going into labor on my own. So they knew I lived close, but he was very serious about it all. And my nurse, Nikki, my girl, she came in and she was like, did he try to scare you? And I was like, yeah. I was like, trying not to cry. She was like, don't worry about it. We'll see you in a little bit. Go home and get your stuff. Take your time and try to relax a little bit. Because she could tell I was just freaking out. So I go home. I'm gonna cry because I'm going through all these emotions again. I get to the first floor of the hospital. I get to the first floor of the hospital and I just start crying. I'm like, put the sunglasses on. I'm crying now. I call my husband because I've been updating him and my mom this whole time. I call him and I'm like, I'm getting induced tonight. We're having a baby. And I just start crying my eyes out. Just crying. And I call my mom and tell her the same thing, crying my eyes out. I get home. I see our dog, who has no idea what's going on, but he's the sweetest. We have the best dog ever. Oh my gosh, here we go. And I just start bawling my eyes out. So I get my bags, I get everything. My husband was supposed to fly that night. The night I was supposed to be induced, he was supposed to have a training flight, which means night flying means they don't get home until 3 a.m., which would be 2 a.m. here in Vegas. And thankfully, the person in charge of him was like, you're not flying if your wife is getting induced. You're going to hit the road. And thankfully, it thunderstormed that night, so we wouldn't have flown anyways. So he hits the road. He's got an 8-hour drive ahead of him. He left at 6 or 7 p.m. I got back to the hospital at 6-ish and got admitted. Shifts change. So I have a new nurse. My night nurse was like, what's your birth plan? What do you want? And I was like, don't ask me about pain meds. I said, I'll bring it up if I want it. And she was like, she wrote it on my board, nice big letters, and everyone honored it, which was amazing. And fast forward a little bit, I was there for 3 shifts before I delivered my little sweet son. So I was really impressed by the whole experience at the hospital, how everyone treated me, and the fact that they honored that no matter what nurse or what doctor or tech or whatever it was amazing. I had an amazing experience. If everyone could deliver at our base hospital, you'd be so lucky because it was amazing. But I just kind of hung out from 6:30, 7 o'clock until about 11:30. The doctor on call that night came in and they put a Foley bulb in. So that was the first step of the induction. It's this little thing that goes in and a little bulb that they fill with fluid, and it just expands to help expand your cervix. I was already 1 centimeter dilated. I had been contracting consistently but not feeling them. I had Braxton Hicks for forever. But they put that Foley bulb in at 11:30. Because I wasn't dilated a ton, it was horrible. It was probably it was a different kind of bad than the contractions were later on, but oh my gosh, I was you're elbow deep in me right now. I was screaming. I was probably kicking her, not so bad as she's been kicked, but the nurse, she's my other girl, Shannon. That nurse, she was like, you're doing great, and I was like, do you say that to everyone? I told her that in between them trying to put it in. I was like, do you say that to everyone? And she was like, no, I wouldn't say it if I wasn't serious. And I was like, okay. And it was horrible, but they got it in. I could not sleep. Baby Royce is awake. I could not sleep for the life of me because obviously my husband's on the road and we're gonna have a baby and I'm by myself. Oh my gosh, this is a crazy part of the story. Come here, Weiss. Come here, baby. I thought you were gonna sleep. He has been like a no sleep monster. Hi, it's okay. It's okay. Oh, it's okay. So, yeah. So 11:30, they put it in. I just hang out, right? It's supposed to like dilate you to like 3-4 centimeters. My husband gets in at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. And finally, when he got in, we were able to sleep for a few hours. And at 6 a.m., our tech came in and started Pitocin and started an IV. I was dilated about 3 centimeters at this time. They took the bulb out. And the way Pitocin works, at least the way they did it for me, is they would up it a little bit every 30 minutes. So they started at like a 2, I think. And the highest it can go is 30. So they started at a 2, and every 30 minutes they start to up it a little bit. And they just kind of like gauge how you're progressing, how your contractions are, because they don't want the contractions to be too strong and the baby not be able to deal with them. So, yeah. So my husband's there. I start laboring on Pitocin. Come on, little man. And they're upping it every 30 minutes. And I was fine. It was great. I could move around. We used a lot of the stuff that my husband and I learned in our Bradley method class, which was great. And about early after, like I could talk through them, I was fine. Early afternoon, I had to start focusing. So like a little after lunch, I had to start focusing on getting through the contractions. And that's when it started to get a little harder for me. And at 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they checked me. And I was at 5. I was at 5 centimeters, and I was like, yes, there's no going back. The induction is working. I was so happy. So at this point, I got started at 11:30 the night before, right? It's like, good one. It's like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and I'm 5 centimeters. Sweet. Had a great doctor. He was awesome. He came back in at 5, and he was like, so, you know, and they brought up then, they were like, we might have to break your water to speed things up, because once you're at 5, 6, that usually progresses you a lot faster, even if you've been induced. So they come back in at 5, they're like, you know, as long as, and they, every time they did something, or they wanted to, you know, when they did every single intervention, which I wanted none of, right? Every single intervention they did, they asked for my permission, which is exactly, informed consent. It's exactly what you should do. They explained the benefits, the risks, and gave me the choice of yes or no. So they, you know, with my consent, they broke my water at 5 p.m. To speed things up. I was still at 5 centimeters at this point. I was like, that's okay. Like, it had only been an hour or 2. And when he broke his water, the doctor was like, he's got a head full of hair. And I was like, what? Like, how do you know that? I was mind blown. I was like, how do you know he's got hair? That's crazy. And that's when it got real for me. I was like, oh my gosh, we're having a baby. And I cried again. I cried on and off all day because I was like, we're having a baby. This is so crazy. My contractions were still manageable. I still had to focus through them. All afternoon until about the evening. Somewhere in there when they started to get a little harder, my blood pressures got dangerously high. So like 160s, I want to say it was like 180s over 100. They didn't tell me until like postpartum because it was all kind of a blur for me because I was really focusing on my contractions. They were getting hard. Pitocin contractions, they say that like when you're at 6 centimeters on Pitocin is like when you're going through transition naturally. So, I mean, I was very proud of myself for laboring naturally on Pitocin as long as I did. Without pain meds. Did he spit up on me? I think I've spit up on me. It's fine. So whenever my blood pressure got really dangerous, which obviously like pain makes your blood pressure go up, right? So I'm dealing with these tougher contractions, trying to work through them. And so because they got so high, they had to put me on magnesium on a drip. So magnesium is a muscle relaxant, I learned very quickly, which means you're not allowed to get up from bed anymore, which means you can't pee in the bathroom. So I obviously still had no pain meds because I was like, I'm doing this like without pain meds as long as I can. If it's all the way, sweet, that's what I want. If it's not, that's okay. Like, I'll give myself grace because this is not what I planned. So I'm on Pitocin. I think I was up to a 20 at this point. Once they get to 30, they have to like, you don't have a choice. They have to put you on pain meds and magnesium because like Pitocin is so high, but I was at 20. So my Pitocin's up to a 20 right now. I'm still on no pain meds, which was, I mean, I'm so thankful we took a Bradley class because my husband was amazing. He was an amazing coach. He was amazing support. He said all the right things at the right times to help me through each contraction. He was awesome. Shout out to you, Casey. I love you. So does Royce. And so they put me on magnesium, which means you can't pee. You also have, oh my gosh, I'm covered in something. Since you can't get up from the bed to go to the bathroom, they have to put a catheter in your bladder too. So they did that without pain meds, which is horrible. I recommend that to no one. The Foley bulb was worse the night before, but at about probably 7 or 8 p.m. they had to do the magnesium, put the catheter in. Y'all, if they tell you have to go on magnesium and you have to get a catheter, get an epidural before they put the catheter in. I'm just helping you out. If I have to go through this again, I'm doing that because I was like, this is horrible. So they put that in. I can't get up from bed. And I start to feel like, a little bit after that, I feel like I'm going through transition. I'm shaking. I'm crying. Mind you, my water's been broken. Pitocin's up super high. Like, my contractions were really strong. The nurse thought I was going through transition. I was like laughing and crying at the same time. It was nuts. It was nuts. My hormones were everywhere. So I'm shaking, I'm crying, crazy emotions. This lasts like an hour or two. At 8 p.m., they come in to check me again. They really didn't check me a ton, which is amazing. I think they checked me like after my water was broken, which I didn't want to be checked if my water had to be broken. Transition is when your body basically goes from like normal contractions that are opening your uterus up, opening your cervix up, to your cervix is open all the way and you're ready for the baby to start being pushed out. So that's what transition is. You transition from basically your cervix going from 0 centimeters to 10 and being ready to push. So I thought I had gone through transition and then I'd be at a 10 because I was literally, it was horrible. It was horrible. I thought I was going to puke a few times, which is all normal for transition, what I did. The nurse thought so. They came back in to check. That's how I felt too. I was at a 5. I was still at 5 centimeters. It's like 7:30, 8 p.m. at this point. Yeah, I'm covered in like drool or something right now. And like I said, I have a catheter and I can't get up from the bed. I cannot handle, like I couldn't work through the pain anymore. I was still working through the contractions, but like I couldn't relax, especially physically where I needed to relax. Oh, it's so hard. I couldn't relax. I couldn't relax my abdomen. I couldn't relax like my legs and stuff because I was in such intense, I don't want to use the word pain, because I don't want to scare people, but it was hard. Pitocin is not easy. This was not natural labor. But that was hard, but I think the reason I knew I needed an epidural was because I could not relax. And for your body to successfully go through labor, you have to relax. Like, you have to be able to breathe. You have to be focused. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Tori. But you have to be able to physically relax your body, relax your mind. And because of the way Pitocin was making me feel, because I could not get up from bed and move, and because I had a catheter in a place where you don't want no catheter, I couldn't relax. Like, I couldn't. It didn't feel like I could. It was my mind I was trying to breathe through stuff. My husband was amazing at helping me do all that, but I literally, I knew I couldn't. So I was like, so tell me, I'm at a 5. I'm like talking to the doctor between contractions. I'm like, I'm at a 5. I was like, if I were to get an epidural right now, would it slow my labor down? And she was like, they were all kind of like, is she really bringing this up? Like, I thought she didn't want that. She said, don't bring it up unless she asks. Is she asking? Because I didn't like say, can I have an epidural? I was like, so if I get one. I was like trying to really figure out, whoa. Oh, I better close this up soon because you wouldn't eat, huh? Mom life is fun. It really is. It's amazing. So, you know, we talked about it, and I was like, I want one. Like, I don't want one, but I need an epidural, because I can't relax. and if I don't relax, my body will stop and I'll get stuck. And I said at the end of the day, I don't want surgery. So if an epidural is what I need to let my body keep going, then I need an epidural. And my husband is looking at me like, are you sure? Like, are you really sure? Are you sure? Because he knew I was like did not want one. I was very, very committed to doing this as naturally as I could. But I knew that's what my body needed. So 8:30, my savior came. At 8:30, my savior came and I got an epidural. It was an amazing epidural. I know some don't always go so great, but I got to sleep for a few hours. They switched me back and forth on sides. I'm on my third shift by now, and my OG nurse from Monday and Tuesday, Nikki, was back on shift. And Shannon, my girl from my first night there, was like the head nurse. So I was super excited. I was like, we're having this baby before the shift's over. That's what I told them. I was like, it was funny because it was almost like I changed once I got an epidural. I was a lot more fun. I was a lot happier. So slept on and off for a few hours. 4 or 5 a.m. they come in, check me, and I'm at like, because it started to feel like, and I basically slept my body to 9 centimeters. Like, I had to relax. But 4 or 5 a.m., I felt like I kind of had to push. And they said, let us know when that is and we'll check you. They didn't check me literally after giving me an epidural, which is awesome. So 9 centimeters is where I was at, 4 or 5 a.m. I was like, yes, we're having a baby before the shift's over. So at that point, I was like, I want a mirror because I want to see him come out. I want to see my pushing. I want to see this happen. So it started to feel like I was like, oh my gosh, I have to push. Like, it totally felt like it. Felt so much pressure that I hadn't felt yet. And I was at 9 centimeters, so they were like, okay, you can't push yet. But what you need to do is labor down. You might be at 10 centimeters, but so usually you might hear like, okay, you're complete, you're at 10 centimeters, let's start pushing. But the baby has to get down through the birth canal before he starts crowning. That's called laboring down. And when that first started, I thought I was needing to push, but that was like 5 a.m. So if I had started then, I would have pushed for like an hour and a half. So what they did was they put my bed in like a throne position. My epidural was amazing. I could still move my legs a little bit. Obviously I wasn't getting up from the bed anytime soon, but I could like kind of pick them up and move them. They moved my bed into this, like, they called it a throne position, and I was like joking about it. It was hilarious. And yeah, I could kind of feel some contractions, like I could kind of feel my contractions on the lower left side of my abdomen, like, and after a little while I had to start working through them. Like, it hurt kind of bad. So they upped my epidural a little bit, like with a button, but I didn't really need much more than that. I could still move my legs. Like I said, our anesthesiologist was like my savior. So I'm laboring down. I'm sitting there, and again I start feeling like I need to push like a ton, and I'm like, okay guys, like, I think he's ready. And so they break down the bed. I lay back, which also I don't want to deliver laying back with my legs up in stirrups, but guess what I had to do? But you know what? Things don't go the way they plan, but they go just how they're supposed to. So the epidural kind of was wearing off, but not to the point where like it wasn't to the point where I couldn't feel anything, but it also wasn't like wearing off to the point where it hurt. It was perfect. So I could feel where he was. I could feel him coming down. And at about 6 a.m., oh, baby, I'm sorry. This is what our day consists of. We got drool and everything. At 6 a.m., I was at 10 centimeters, and it was time to push. Come on, it was awesome. It was awesome, dude. He's like, that was hard. I'm so sorry, guys. So at 6 a.m., it's time to push. I pushed about 8 times, and what's cool is like they helped me push, but they didn't like do the whole count to 10, hold your breath the whole time, because I was like, I know I can't. I'm gonna have to take a breath in between because I'm pushing real darn hard because this baby's coming out. Shift change was at like 6:37, 6:30, between 6:30 and 7, and I start pushing at 6. I was like, we're having a baby before shift change, because I wanted my 2 nurses there. I was like, I want you guys here. I need a picture with you after he's born. I was so demanding. It's pretty funny. So while I was pushing, I'm tied, like my whole labor, I was like tied to the monitor because I had the straps on. Since I was on Pitocin, they had to have those on. And so I'm like back looking at the monitor the whole time. I'm seeing like, oh look, someone else had a baby. Oh look, she's coming in and having a baby. And I like was watching my contractions, and so while I'm pushing and watching my contractions, they finally turned the monitor away from me. They're like, you need to focus. So I do that. And I evidently was a really good pusher, according to them. And I was like, it's because I worked out my whole pregnancy. The mirror was also amazing because I could see the progress. And my doctor was like, he's got blonde hair. And I was like, what? Yes! Because my husband's got really dark hair. So that was pretty awesome. And it was, so like, I didn't have to feel like the ring of fire or any of that crazy pain when they come out. But I did, it was the nuttiest feeling in the world when, so I pushed about 8 times, and at 6:39, little Royce was born. My husband got to put on gloves and catch him, which was super cool because we were like, we want one of us to be the first person that touches him when he comes out, like, we're his parents. And so my husband got to catch him, with help from the doctor, obviously. And, because babies are slippery. And, it was nuts when he, like, came all the way out. It's the most relieving feeling in the world when they, like, slide the rest of the way out. I also really did not want, the thing I was most scared about, like, my whole pregnancy was tearing or having to get an episiotomy. And, thankfully, they're an evidence-based hospital, so they're like, we literally don't do episiotomies unless it's like literally an emergency. So he came out. I thought it was minutes before he cried, because they were like rubbing him and rubbing him and rubbing him, and it felt like minutes, and I was freaking out. And he cried like that after like 5 seconds, I was told, even though I thought it was minutes. They showed him to me, so that picture I posted and that I was in my story yesterday, they showed him to me, they're holding it up, he pees right on my face, in my mouth, everything, pees all over me. So I'm actually laughing because he's peeing on me in that picture, and the nurse is like covering him up because she's laughing too, and he's peeing on my face. So he came out and peed on my face. They put him on my chest. We got that golden hour. We got to try breastfeeding. They did not rush any of that. It was phenomenal. I had a first degree tear, which is basically like, sometimes you don't even have to get a stitch. I got a little stitch, and that was all good. My placenta came out, which was crazy. I was like, show me that thing. I grew an organ. I want to see it. So I got to see my placenta, which was super cool. And it was just amazing. It was the coolest, craziest. It was 31 hours. I labored for 20 hours without pain meds, which I'm super proud of. But what's really cool, and I think part of this is just the fact that I've been so active my whole life. I know my body. I know how to listen to my body, and I know when I need something, how to handle that and how to be okay with it. If I need to rest, like I know, and knowing when I needed that epidural, even though it's not at all what I wanted, I knew I needed it, and I knew how to listen to my body and get over what I wanted. So he could be healthy, and so I could be healthy and have the best experience possible. And so that's what we needed at that time. And so he came out. It was great. Our family came in a few hours later. I unfortunately, because I was on magnesium and it's a muscle relaxant, I had to stay in bed for 12 hours. So, oh, I love you. It's okay. I'm sorry to all you moms listening. Your babies are starting to cry too. So I had to stay in bed for 12 hours. My 2 nurses, I was like, take a picture with me. And we got pictures with my husband. It was amazing. Oh, I gotta end this. He's hungry. You're okay, buddy. You're getting all the Royce experience right now, y'all. Our family came in, so I had to stay in that bed till about 7 o'clock that night, which I don't know. Baby, it's okay. I'm sorry, y'all. So I don't know. I don't know what it's like to have, I don't know what it's like to have a natural birth and be able to walk away from the bed, or to have an epidural and be able to walk away from your bed a few hours later. I think my recovery was a little harder because of the magnesium, having to be in bed for 12 hours afterwards. I think that made it a little harder, my whole recovery in general. Yeah, it was awesome. He was born Thursday morning, so Tuesday night I got induced. Thursday morning he was born, longest labor ever. In my eyes, oh my gosh, it felt like forever. But yeah, it was awesome. Our families got to fly in on Wednesday, so they were there on Thursday morning. They got to meet our little baby Royce. And our postpartum stay was what was interesting for just us. So we were told we might be able to leave after 24 hours, which is early for a first-time mom. But that ended up not happening because he lost some, I don't remember, this was all kind of a blur. But we ended up having to stay a few extra nights longer than usual. We should have ideally left on Saturday, but we didn't get to leave till Monday because of bilirubin levels and having to be under the lights. He had to get a circumcision, but we chose to do that, and because of losing some body weight. And I was kind of frustrated about that one because I was like, y'all, like, I was on IVs for, 30-ish hours. Like, of course he's going to lose 11% of his body weight because he had fluid in him too from that, and 10% is kind of that threshold. But it's good that they did in the end because of his bilirubin levels. That's why we had to stay the last extra night. Because of y'all's prayers, he is fine. He's healthy. He's like almost 11.5 pounds now, which is like humongous. But yeah, about a week later, I started getting bad headaches. My mom was staying with me because my husband had to leave to go back to Albuquerque after we got home, which was horrible. But my mom made me go back in because my headaches were pretty bad. My blood pressures were still high. So I had to stay for an extra night, and this kind of brought it all full circle because it was hard, like with my husband leaving, and physically it hurts afterwards. But when I had to be readmitted, they put me in labor delivery so he could stay with me, and they put us in the room that he was born in, which I could cry right now thinking about it, but it just brought it all full circle and made it very, like, this is amazing. Like, our bodies are amazing. This baby's amazing. I'm so blessed. I'm so thankful for modern medicine because, like, the fact that I had to be readmitted and the fact that our labor just went as well as it did, despite the complications at the end of my pregnancy. Like, I was just so thankful. Despite, it's scary. Preeclampsia is not something to mess with. The swelling was real, but I was just so thankful about how all that went, and being able to stay that one more night in the hospital. I did not want to be there. Goodness, I was like so done with hospital. I was like, I want to come visit you guys every week because I felt like labor and delivery was my family. Like, we literally knew everyone that worked that floor because we were there for so long. But I was like, I want to come hang out with you guys every day, but I was just but we were so done with hospital, and so it was hard to be there that night, but it was really, really amazing to be like, wow, we went through so much, and now we're back here, and this is going to be the last thing. I'm going to be healthy. I'm not coming back. And it just brought it full circle. So someone asked if I was scared about going through all this, and no, I wasn't, for 2 reasons. So I educated myself big time. If you're pregnant, educate yourself about birth, how it works, different interventions that you might have to have. If you don't want something to happen, you need to learn about it so you know what happens if you do have to have that intervention or have to have a cesarean section. And I listened to a lot of birth stories. I listened to everything from like home births, which I wasn't even planning on. I listened to home births all the way to planned cesareans. Like, I listened to everything. So fill your mind with birth stories, fill your mind with the education that you need, and then something that I think this is just kind of how I am, but I trust my body, and I think that kind of plays through the whole story with deciding to get an epidural, deciding to go back into the hospital with my headaches postpartum, but know your body and trust it. trust that you were created. God created your body to carry a baby for almost a year, to create that baby, carry it for so long, keep it alive, grow it, and keep it alive after it's born, which is phenomenal. It's amazing. But he created you to birth that child. Like, your body cannot grow a baby that's too big for your body. Your body cannot grow a baby that, like, your body's not capable of birth. You're capable of it, whether you have a natural birth at home or whether you have a planned cesarean in the hospital. Like, you were created to birth your child and take care of him, no matter how your birth happens. And praise Jesus that we have the interventions and the knowledge that we do these days in medicine. Obviously, people will give the argument, like, hundreds and thousands of years, people have given birth, naturally, not in hospitals. And so why do we need to do it there? Like, yeah, I believe that. I totally agree. You're so right. People that want to, push that on people, you're absolutely right, but there's no need to have mommy wars about it, because guess what? Some people have medical issues. Some people have needs in their life where they need to have an intervention. And you know what? If we didn't have what we had available at our hospital, if we didn't have a hospital, if this was 200 years ago, I might not have lived through labor and delivery. He might not have. I might have stroked out. Anything could have happened. So it's amazing to me. I'm very anti-mommy wars because of all that. You do you. If you know you want to get an epidural before birth, girl, you go do it. It will help you relax. Just get it at the right time in labor. So yeah, just educate yourself. Listen to birth stories. Listen to mine again if you need to, but listen to all different kinds, not just the kind that you want. And trust your body, because you were created to not just grow your child, but birth it. And it's an amazing process no matter how you go through it. I still cry looking at the pictures of the day he was born. How little he was. He's so big now. I'm like, stop growing. Jeez, child. So that's our birth story. It's been like a whole hour. Holy cow. I'm going to get off. So I'm so glad I got to share this with you guys. I hope it was an encouragement to you. I hope it kind of helped you get to know me a little bit better, because, yeah, it was a long road, and I think it shows a lot of who I am and just kind of how I do life. So I hope that you guys have a great Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving. If any of you guys are pregnant, you can reach out if you have questions or anything. I'd love to talk about it. And just have a blessed day. Love you all.